Okay, so I think there's still probably going to be a couple of people filtering as we start, but that should be fine. Just a quick note about Zoom protocols. I'm going to keep everyone muted just so there's no background noise. And if you have any questions while Christina is talking, you can just post them in the chat box and we'll have about, 15, 20 minutes or however long we need for questions at the end. And I'll just ask Christina the questions so that we're not kind of we've tried the raise hand and people start talking and it gets a little confusing. So post your questions in the chat box and then I'll ask Christina them at the end. And there'll be plenty of time at the end to also post like add some other stuff to the chat box. And I'm going to let Christina introduce herself because I'm sure she can talk about herself better than I can. So I'm going to pass it along to Christina and yeah, hope everyone enjoys.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Aaron. And thanks so much, everybody, for logging on today. I know it's hard in the summer with lots of plans and things happening and nice weather, although today doesn't look so great. So I appreciate you coming on. My name is Christina. I was a director at the Conservancy from 2015 to 2020. I also started the Little Sprouts Eco Club, which is still going strong and growing every year, which is fantastic. So, conservation and reducing my waste, all things like that have been a part of my life. And I think just in the last couple of years, it really sort of hit me how much we really need to do. I think like all of you, I was bringing my recycling bins to the curb every week, thinking that I was doing my job and that I had the false idea that all of those items that I put in there were 100% becoming something new again. And so I had a bit of an eye-opener from a few different tours of the recycling plant. And it really made me realize, I could be doing more. So that's why I got into zero waste. My other job is that I work for the recreation department for the town of Bracebridge. And so in that job, I was able to meet a lot of different people, but because it's a public building, I see a lot of people come and go. And there's a lot of waste associated with, events and things that happen there too. So that was also an eye-opener for me. So I'm just going to share my screen. I've got my presentation here for you. There we go. And slideshow. There we go. So hopefully everybody can see it. If you have any issues seeing it, thank you, Aaron. Just let me know or let Aaron know, and I can adjust as needed. So I've been giving these presentations for the last few years. Up until 2019, I felt that we were really on our way moving forward. That was before the pandemic hit, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a little bit. But this quote has always stuck with me, and if you're on my Facebook friends list, you'll see that this is my cover photo, and it's just a daily reminder for me. And it's, we need to move away from a throwaway culture in which we think that what we dispose of just disappears. So I think from a young age, we see these garbage bins out in public, especially at festivals and events. Farmers markets, things like that. And, you get your food item, you consume it, and it goes in the black garbage bin. And then you don't think about it again. There's no thought as to where that goes and how long that sits in a landfill, even in a recycling bin. We kind of just dispose of it and it disappears out of our life. And we don't put a lot of thought about, we just assume that, well, then they take care of it and that will turn into something else. One of my biggest eye-openers, and I mentioned, was working at the Sportsplex and seeing the birthday parties each Saturday, each Sunday. People would come in and throw a birthday party for their child in our adventure room. And what I was noticing was the waste that was piling up after each party. They're bringing in a plastic tablecloth and they're bringing in paper plates and, plastic utensils, juice boxes, pizza boxes, then there's wrapping from the presents. And it was this huge garbage bag after each party that I was watching the maintenance person then take out to our dumpster. So then when it was my turn and my daughter wanted to have a party, I thought I would challenge myself and see if I could do things differently. So we brought a cloth tablecloth, I brought plates, I brought little mason jars as their cups. I purchased chocolate milk in a reusable, like, returnable glass container, made lemonade and brought it in a pitcher. Instead of gifts, we asked that people donate to a local animal shelter. So we ended up having no waste at the end. And I even brought a compost, one of those little compost buckets, so I could bring home any food waste. And so at the end, when the maintenance person came in, he started laughing because there was nothing for him to do except for wiping down some things. But it just showed me that, yes, it can happen. You need to put a little bit more thought into it. But I want, a mind shift of other parents maybe that were there, and they asked questions like, oh, interesting, where did you get that chocolate milk? Or where did you get that cloth tablecloth? And that just becomes a part of our birthday box at home that we bring out every year, that's got the decorations, the cloth, the napkins, everything. And so that was just, one eye opener of how we can move forward without just throwing something in the garbage and not thinking about it again. So before I get into the presentation, I just wanted everybody to kind of take a minute and think about maybe 3 household items that you have, that you purchase, whether it's daily or weekly, something in your house that you bring into your home, and whether it goes in the recycling or it goes into, your garbage. And you don't need to say them out loud, but it's just something that, just to keep in mind, if you can think of 3 things. And then we'll see kind of, at the end, if I can help you to maybe you've had an aha over the presentation that you can switch even one of those things. So, and I should say for us too, I'm a family of 4. Like I've got 2 children, we've got 2 dogs, 2 cats, and a husband. And so we do have waste that comes into our home. There are items that I'm unable to find zero waste. But we can all just do our best and see where there is some places where we can reduce. So if you're brand new to zero waste and you've never even heard about it before, and this is brand new to you, some people they're well on their way. But I just wanted to give a little recap. So what it is it's the reduction in the consumptive waste within our homes and our lives. It's switching your mindset when you're out shopping too, just mindlessly grabbing that salad in the plastic container, things like that. So you're changing your mind shift on how do I really want this item in my home, and what can I do with it once it's in there? And can it be changed into something else? It's about a conscious effort to choose a plastic-free, waste-free when you're out shopping. And we say plastic-free because, and I will talk about this, but other packages are more sustainable. And so plastic really is at the top of the list, that if you have to buy something, plastic should be, can you get it elsewhere first? It's about choosing secondhand when possible before buying new. A great example of that is over the pandemic, I couldn't really shop for my kids and they were growing out of clothing. And I found this dollar auction online. It's been absolutely amazing. And so, it's all contactless. You drop it off at someone's house and they leave the money, or they e-transfer the money. And I was able to kind of, get my kids through another 2 or 3 seasons without having to shop online or go to stores I wasn't able to go to. So secondhand can be amazing. And also I made money on it too, because I sold some old toys. And so it was great. It was a great way for me to trade in our community. And then if you are buying in a package, you want to look for glass, you want to look for aluminum or paper, or a sustainable, returnable product first. So plastic would definitely be at the last. If you have to get something, you'd look for those other items first. So what actually gets recycled? So if you can see here, this was a picture on one of our tours that the Little Sprouts took. And you can see that big mountain behind them. And it was a very eye-opening tour for sure. The kids loved it. We got to see the conveyor belt where they sorted everything. It's definitely a job that, I applaud them, because not everybody recycles, not everybody cleans their containers well. And they're sorting some pretty crummy things in there too. So the kids were pretty in awe about it. But for me, when I look at that pile, I just kept thinking, but that's getting added to every single week. And how could you ever recycle all of those materials? They're so mixed in, and as much sorting as you can do, there's just some things that aren't salvageable. And so unfortunately, a lot of that is ending up in the landfill. So when we look at plastics, the reason I say plastic would be at the absolute bottom is that only 9% of our plastics are actually recycled into other materials again. And even of that 9%, only those 9% of plastics can only be recycled up to 9 times before they just hit the end of their life cycle, and then they end up in the landfill. Also black plastic. So if you see, your black coffee lid, takeout containers, anything like that, those are on their last legs before they're ready for the landfill. So while they say you can put them in the recycling, the reality is that if it's a black plastic, it can't be turned into anything else again. It has the dyes and everything in it, and it's mixed materials. And so that's why it's black, so that it then goes into the landfill. So if we ever get, takeout containers, we try to use them as different things. Like they're great for cheese in your fridge, things like that, or just using them as containers for yourself for leftovers. So we try to hang on to those, knowing that they won't be recycled. Aluminum was one thing, and in Muskoka we do have a really robust recycling plant. Aluminum is one thing that we do have a buyer for, and so 65% of aluminum actually does get turned back into cans and things like that again. And then glass is 100% recyclable, can be endlessly recycled without losing its quality. So you never need to make new glass. It can just keep being reused, recycled. So I like to look for glass. I also like to keep the glass and use it for other things, which I'll show you as well. So what we need to do is move towards a circular economy. And that goes back to my first slide that says, we need to move away from this throwaway society and move into a circular economy. This diagram here, I actually got from the Recycling Council of Ontario. And this is their way forward. This is how they're building the future of Ontario, which I think is great. It needs some work, but it's good that they're actually improving upon some of their systems. If you see down there the garbage truck that says improve collection, that was one thing recently in the news. I'm sure you saw there was some debate about, they were talking about our new recycling contract in the District of Muskoka, and I had several emails of people ask me, what does it mean? They're saying that, it's going to be removed and taken to Toronto, and shouldn't it be here, and that sort of thing. But what we need to realize is that it's leaving this area anyways. So whether it's sorted here, which does create jobs, and that's a whole other thing, and that's great. But the waste that's being purchased isn't purchased locally. It is moved out. And so when we took the tour of the recycling plant, they did say that things like styrofoam, even if you had a buyer, it's too light of a material to fill a truck and the fuel of the truck to leave this area. It doesn't make sense to sell that. And so by removing all of our waste, then it might create more opportunities for us to actually sort and have buyers and reproduce the waste into something else. So encouraging recycling is another one. Obviously, we want to do that, but we want to do it properly. And I think if we've all seen when you go to a public park or things like that, you're seeing 2 bins, and one says, we recycle, and then one says waste. And then when you open up the lids, they're just 2 black garbage bins, and they're all going in the same place, which is the landfill. And so I think, municipalities can do a better job of actually encouraging recycling if you go into public places, so that they are the leaders, and that at home, we do our own great job. Everybody's doing a great job at recycling and sorting, but we want to make sure that even in the public, where that waste is actually being sorted properly as well. So what we can do is that we can purchase smartly designed products that are meant to be reused, refurbished, and dismantled, meaning that, if you buy an appliance, at the end of that life, it should be able to be created into something new again. Or if you, purchase something, you want to be able to have it be a reused item. An example would be a coffee maker. So when the K-Cups came out, everyone thought it was such an amazing idea. But then we realized that there was really a lot of waste that came with it. You're not reusing those. So then we had to, kind of scale back and realize that what we had was great and it works great. So we want to support companies that offer take back of products after use. I gave the example of the chocolate milk. So this is how I buy my coffee cream, our milk for the kids, chocolate milk and everything. It's Miller's Dairy. It's an Ontario company. And so when I'm done with it, I return it to Sobeys and I get $2 every time I do that. Then they take it back to their farm, which is fantastic. So any companies, if we can support them in that, the more we'll see springing up. We want to embrace access over ownership. So what that means is, take Netflix, for example. If you are, you used to purchase DVDs and own them, and then it creates a lot of waste. Now we can just log on to Netflix, watch whichever movies we want. So we want to take that model and put it into, say, filling up our soaps at a local store versus purchasing the jug each time. So we're going to bring that same jug back and fill it up again. And then we can also use procurement and purchasing power to influence greater sustainability. An example of that is get to know your produce person in the grocery store. I have gotten to know ours quite well because I'm constantly asking him, like, hey, do you think you could, I'd like to buy those zucchinis, but you've wrapped them in cellophane. Do you have any in the back? And, I'm not doing it in an angry way. We have this great rapport now where when he sees me come in, he goes, oh, Christina, come here. I've got this. I haven't put this out yet. Did you want to take the green beans from the big bin in the back? So it's become a great relationship that I have now where he knows what I'm looking for. And then funny enough, then my mom came in and asked the same thing. And so he said to me, well, I met your mom. I said, how did you know it was my mom? And he said, because she asked for the zucchinis not wrapped in plastic. So he understood that, this is what more people want. And the more we ask and the more we purchase those things, the more, businesses are going to understand what we're looking for. So here's just an example in my own personal family, the things that we've been able to purchase waste-free. And I will talk about the pandemic, I think, in the next slide. But pre-pandemic, these were things that we were able to buy or swap out. So for example, the first one there is paper towels. I'm just going to reach, I don't know if you can see this in the side, but this is now how we use our paper towels. This is called an unpaper towel and it's terry cloth. And it comes on snaps and they go in the wash. And by the time we're at the end of the roll, they're all washed and redone again. So we're not really using paper towel anymore. Same with napkins, we're using cloth napkins. Toilet paper, we have always purchased our toilet paper just wrapped in paper like this. And then we can use that paper, we either recycle it or use it to start fires, that kind of thing. But at the beginning of the pandemic, when everyone was rushing out to get toilet paper, we didn't have that problem because we buy it in bulk and we had a box in the basement looking like that. Honestly, I almost gave them out for Halloween because I figured people probably wanted them, which would have been bizarre, but you never know these days. And so some of the other things, are made possible because I'm able to bring my jars into places like the bulk bar and fill those up. So things like pasta, you can see there, rice, cereal, all of those items are possible zero waste because businesses are allowing us to take those jars in. There was a time during the pandemic where we weren't allowed to do that. And now they've just opened that up in the last couple months or so. So other ones, you see down the list there, honey and maple syrup. We are beekeepers, so we have honey, but then we trade with somebody who makes maple syrup. So we're able to just trade those off. And then in the end, if there's, specific items here that you're asking, I can totally answer those as well. I just want to go over to the third one there is meat, fish, and deli meat. So those are items that everybody usually has an issue with. And I would say that go to your local butcher. For us, we go to McMaster Meats, and they've got just the same as I did with my produce manager at their grocery store. At McMaster Meats, they've been amazing with understanding that I would like things without waste. Can't always happen, but I have brought my glass containers for deli meats, and they just put the sticker on top. If we're getting, like meat for dinner, she'll text my husband and say, I know your wife wants it wrapped in paper. So they've gotten to know that about us, which is fantastic. Other places, because they're a small business, they're able to do that. But other bigger businesses, they may need to, adhere to other policies at the top level. So they may not be as willing to do that. But it's about asking, and it's about constantly just, could I do this? And they say no, maybe next time they'll say yes. The more of us that ask, then hopefully they'll, be able to change their mind. So. And then I think we talked before about the toothbrushes, but also, things like toothpaste you can get in refillable little containers. If you go to smaller stores, there's one in Gravenhurst called Fresh Nutrition and Lifestyle. There's one in Aurelia where I get some of the other items that are a little bit harder to find, like deodorant. And then in Bracebridge, Muskoka Natural Food Market, you can also fill up things like shampoos and conditioners. There's also bars of soap that you can get, a shampoo bar, which Bulk Barn sells as well. So as I was mentioning, zero waste in a pandemic, that really took the wind out of my sails when it first started, because all of a sudden, everything was about, stopping the refill programs. You could no longer take your coffee cup and get it refilled at Tim Hortons when before they were able to do it, things like that. There were also a lot of disposable PPE I was seeing everywhere: masks, gloves, gowns, wipes. Suddenly there was just a lot of single-use waste. And it was just in the moment that people needed to be safe. So there's nothing we can do about that. Obviously, a pandemic trumps our waste needs for the moment. But I'm happy to see that as things have gone on, some of those have been clawed back, and they were allowing, reusable masks, things like that. Pre-wrapped single-use items you saw them everywhere. Everything was back to, we had gone in 2019 from, we don't need straws, we don't need that. And then all of a sudden everything was pre-wrapped again, like pre-wrapped fork, pre-wrapped straw. So I'm happy to see that that is finally at its end as well. We also saw in the last year more visitors to our area, and that meant more waste, less town staff to empty bins, and litter. We've just seen the litter and masks are a part of that litter. We're seeing that everywhere. There was also a surge, and this is one that's unfortunately, this trend is continuing, which is a surge in online shopping and the packaging that comes with it. So if we do need to shop online, what we can do with that packaging is save it and use it next time we need to send something out, that kind of thing. And also there's the loss of income and the anxiety. And so then people go into a survival mode. And that might mean, buying Clorox wipes when you've never used those before to feel safe. Or just, your brain just can't comprehend saving the world when when you're going from paycheck to paycheck or you've lost your job. So those were things we were dealing with. But I think as we're coming to the end of that, we can see, like, for example, Bulk Barn is allowing the refill program again. And so hopefully we'll be allowed to bring our coffee cups and get those filled again soon. So we'll see more and more of that clawing back. So for yourselves personally, and for myself personally, in a pandemic, the first thing I noticed was our pantry was stocked. And so because we had our jars filled with pasta and rice and baking goods, baking ingredients, we didn't feel the need to run out and buy like crazy, because when you live in a zero waste lifestyle, you're making a lot of things from scratch. And so you already have those ingredients. And you can just kind of add to it with, produce and things like that. Buying in bulk. So when I couldn't fill my jars, then instead I was buying, a 10-pound bag of rice, which I still have. And so trying to buy things, or shampoos and conditioners, I was buying the big jug of it versus, buying the little bottles, and I couldn't fill them up. Swapping and trading, I kind of talked about that already. That became a big part of my daily life was, does anybody have this? Could I trade that? And it really brought us all back down to this local level. I felt safe doing that. Felt like I was helping out another local family, that kind of thing. When we choose seasonal produce, 99.99% of the time, it is package free. So currently right now, berries are in season. You can get them at the farmer's market. You can get them, you can go berry picking. So what I like to do is, at this time of year, I would pick the berries, freeze them for my smoothies and to thaw for the winter months. So by the time berry season is over, we're so sick of berries that we're moving on to things like apples, peaches, plums, things like that. I also, you know, if I can't get to the store, I go to Anderson's fruit stand or vegetable stand, and they let me bring my own baskets, and I dump theirs into mine, and so there is no waste there as well. Meal planning was a big thing for us during the pandemic, and we've continued that on to this day. And it just helps us to, you know, if I know one day we're having tacos, then I would take those taco items the next day and make enchiladas or something like that. So it's stretching out your ingredients that you have so that you're not creating new every day and new garbage every day. Choosing items with a dual purpose. Or that can be reused. So for example, baking soda, we obviously use for baking, but we also use for cleaning. We use vinegar for cleaning, like with the baking soda. And so that I'm buying, you know, one thing and I'm using it for several different things. Reusing, so for example, when I couldn't fill my peanut butter, this is a peanut butter jar from Maranatha. And then I got, what's it called? Rich Hill candles to turn them into candles. So now I you know, saved up all my jars, and now I have all these candles which smell amazing, and you can choose your smell. But so I didn't have to recycle those. We just kept them, and then we, you know, bring some to the cottage, keep some here, and they're great. So now we have candles too. So, and then lastly, composting. One thing that I have been constantly asking for municipalities to do is allow composting curbside pickup. For people in rural areas, because if you live in town, you get your green bin. It's so easy to just, you know, put the green bin to the curb. And I recognize that if you're living on a back road or living out in the country or a cottage road, it's more difficult to compost. And so if the goal is to reduce our landfill in Muskoka, then what we need to do is have people have access to composting. So I know it sounds like a lot, you know, of negative stuff happened in the last year, but some good stuff happened too. And that was the Canadian government banned single-use plastics by the end of 2021. So that is coming up, which is exciting. So that means that businesses need to swap out their checkout bags, which we've seen, you know, Sobeys was one to do it right before the pandemic began. Straws, stir sticks, those 6-pack rings for beer, pop, cutlery, food containers made from hard to recycle plastics. So all of those things are going to be amazing to see these changes. And I really just hope that whatever the change is doesn't create another issue. Like, for example, a lot of people just switch then to paper. So, you know, hopefully there's some sustainability happening there, but it'll be exciting to see how that changes. At the local level, we see the climate resolution that was happening with Climate Action Muskoka. With the District of Muskoka. So we know that things are happening locally and that we have some targets that we want to meet. And that's a great plan for, you know, people like us to then say, well, what about, you know, waste reduction? What about compost? Things like that. So we can always, now we have a channel and we have someone that we can go to with our issues. TLDSB is our local school board. They announced this year that they have a climate action plan. So that's fantastic. Recently, the town of Bracebridge did a downtown master plan where they asked the public, you know, what they would like to see. And for myself, what I would like to see is some garbage bins with recycling clearly labeled and actually going to the proper place. So I think that would be huge in reducing our landfill. And then businesses like Muskoka Brewery, they've had me come and talk to them several times. They are constantly having contests and things like that. And they help out with Muskoka Conservancy. They do a cleanup day. So when we see businesses, you know, taking initiative and showing that their sustainability is a priority in their business, then the rest of us, you know, we can support businesses like that if we know that. Personal habits are changing. So we see, you know, it used to be a go, go, go world, and now we're spending a lot more time at home. And so we can make meals, we can bake again, things that we didn't have time for. We see that people are having more time for now. And then local restaurants, I have noticed a shift probably since the beginning of the pandemic, where now they, you know, if you call in and order takeout, they're asking, do you need cutlery? They know that we're going home with this food. So we don't need napkins, we don't need cutlery. I say I don't need the soy sauce, I don't need anything, no, just the food, right? So more and more we're seeing that. So when we look at businesses or social groups, for example, I've given this talk to Rotary clubs, and so it's about 100 people that get together every month, and they were getting together and, you know, bringing like coffee sugar, you know, spoons, everything was waste. And since the talk, I was able to, you know, I got an email from them saying, you know, we all bring our own cups and you have to pay $1 if you don't bring your cup, that kind of thing. So that's 100 cups once a month that we've been able to remove from the landfill. Coffee cups are not recyclable because they have a wax coating. And so, you know, I think every little bit helps. When we look at just that one thing that they were able to change, you know, 100 cups over a month over the course of the year is over 1,000 cups, which is amazing. If you, you know, can find creative ways. So if there's way, even if you have like a party at your cottage or things like that, if you can find ways that you can have things without the single-use waste, that always helps. In 2015, I attended a climate reality training with Al Gore in Toronto. There was over 600 people there and they did not have one piece of garbage. Everything looked like this image. They had coffee cups, they had, even in the bathroom, they had a compost bag for all the paper towels. Even our name tags were biodegradable. So I think it is possible, and it's exciting that we can see that, you know, these little changes, they do add up. And then lastly, just completing a waste and energy audit. So you can do that at home, you can do that in your business, you can do it even just by, I know it sounds like a lot, but a waste audit just means looking in your garbage and seeing what possible things am I continuously buying that I could swap out. So when we look at zero waste and you, the things, and me, the things that we can do on a daily basis. I think when you look at, you know, you start to really look at your waste in your home, it can be overwhelming. And so I would say just choose one or two things. And that's why I asked at the beginning if there's, you know, maybe 3 things that you think, yeah, I could swap those out. And then there will be some that you can say, I absolutely can't. Like maybe you're on a medication and that comes in, you know, waste that you can't do anything about. However, maybe something else you thought, you know what, I could swap this out, or I could buy this produce instead of this, that sort of thing. So don't beat yourself up. There's definitely one change is better than no change, and we can all make those changes. It creates a huge impact. One thing I like to do is stick to the perimeter of the grocery store. In the middle, it's all packaged. So if I get my produce, you know, and then we get our meat from McMaster's, the eggs, you know, all the ingredients, and then we're making something at home versus getting things. And it is a shift in mindset. So when I started, you know, I used to buy single-use apple sauces for my kids, and I thought, well, I can buy apples and make applesauce. And then normally we buy our butter in these little containers that are a little glass, and they come with the lid. Well, it's a perfect container for applesauce for my kids. So now if I make applesauce, you know, they can grab that to go versus the single pouches. So, you know, little things like that add up. And then, you know, I mentioned before, creating relationships with those local businesses. The smaller the business, the more they will be willing to work with you on your zero waste goals. An example of that is my kids' dance in the dance recital 2 years ago. And I wanted to buy them flowers, but I didn't want that plastic wrap. So I went to the local flower shop and she totally understood. She wrapped it in burlap for me. And, you know, she took a picture and she thought it looked so pretty too. But I couldn't do that if I just went to the grocery store and picked out the flowers. So, you know, the smaller the business, the more they're willing to help you attain your goals. And then I always like to ask myself with the applesauce as an example, could I make it, or could I buy it secondhand? Could I do without it? If, you know, the answer is no after all those things, then I do need to purchase it. And when I do purchase it, then I can look for glass, you know, aluminum, and plastic being the very minimum. If the plastic does come in, is there some way I can reuse this plastic, as in the example of the takeout containers? Now it stores our cheese in the fridge. And then go easy on yourself, because every little bit helps. And it's, you know, waste is waste, but we can all do a little bit, and it really adds up in the end. So I just want to go back now to those 3 household items, if you can remember them. And if you just want to maybe say it in the chat, if there are any that you now think to yourself, you know what, I could swap that out, or have a question, maybe I could help you out with that. I would be happy to do so. So I'm going to stop share because I just wanted, if people had a question now or anything. This is where you can find me though. I'll leave that up just for a second. Reusable Revolution in Muskoka is our Facebook page. So we're often posting tips and things in local businesses we're promoting, but we also go to festivals and markets and sort their waste for them as well. And then Trash Walking Cup Count Muskoka is another initiative of mine. In 2020, we picked up close to 3,000 coffee cups on the sides of roads in Muskoka. And then this year, I think we're not even halfway through, and we're close to that number already. So I'm going to stop my share, and I would love to hear your questions or comments or anything like that.
Okay, so we've got a few coming in. Before I ask a question, I just wanted to mention something quickly because your talk brought this to mind. When I lived in Korea, we used to everyone ordered food from restaurants because it was so cheap there. And the restaurants would deliver the food with cutlery and like the bowls from the restaurant, and you would actually leave it outside your apartment or your house after you finished, and they would come back, pick up all the cutlery and stuff and take it back, wash it at the restaurant, and use it for the next customer. So it's really interesting that, and that was like normal. That was every restaurant did that. So there is a revolution that can happen, and like other countries, other places are doing it, which I found super interesting. And I forgot about that until now because it was just so normal there. So a couple questions. We have one about laundry detergent sheets that come in an envelope, and someone asking if anyone's found unscented ones. And I can answer this, but I'd be interested in your feedback as well, Christina. But you can buy them in Bracebridge at Cala House of Color, which is downtown. And they also have the natural deodorant in a glass jar. But I'd be interested in where you get if you use like what you use for laundry detergent.
Yeah, so I have seen those strips and I have used them before. They are amazing, and it is a great way to reduce your waste. I haven't seen them unscented, but I think you can order them online as well. So you might find a better option there. I feel like I saw them at Bulk Barn, or there was somewhere weird where I thought, oh, that's interesting, they're carrying them. It might have been Bulk Barn. For myself, we refill a jug. We did it at Muskoka Natural Food Market, was the last time that I did it. Because it is so, I will say this, because it is so condensed, like it's like 16 times condensed or something like that. And I filled one of those big jars, the jugs. Even the lady at the checkout was like, this can't be right. It was like, 90 something dollars, which seemed insane. However, and she was like, this can't be right. This can't be right. And I said, it is right because it's so condensed. And so I wrote the date on the top of the container, and it took me a year to the day to use it up. So if I thought, well, those are normally $16.99, a month or whatever, and I was trying to do the math, and it worked out to be the exact same. So I wasn't saving money, but I was saving, a jug a month for that year. So, as that runs out, I may switch to those other ones. I think it's great. I think it's awesome that they're coming out with all these different, solutions. And I know a lot of people do like them. I haven't seen unscented. So if I do, I will definitely post them on my Facebook page.
We have a question about dental floss, and I also have not been able to eliminate that. So I'd be interested in how you managed to do that.
Yeah, so I had bought my dental floss. It was in a little glass container, and I got it at, there's a place in Aurelia where I get kind of my more obscure zero waste things, but I have seen it at Fresh Nutrition and Lifestyle in Gravenhurst now. And so it's a little glass vial of dental floss that's compostable, so you can put it in compost. And then they just sell the refills for it. So, and it's in like a little compostable package. So I don't know the price because it was so long ago, but you can definitely get it at Gravenhurst. I would maybe check, I don't know about Huntsville, but there is Sustain in Huntsville. So I would imagine she has them there as well. And maybe even Muskoka Natural Food Market, but yeah, it's great. And it's works well, and you can put it right in the compost.
And what is the Aurelia shop?
It is called Refillery District, and it is right near the Opera House, just right around the corner. So they have things like refillable deodorant, like refillable olive oil, vinegar, things like that. So if I can't get that here, I would do I would just go there once every 6 months kind of to stock up on those items.
We have a comment about vegan items that maybe you can speak to from Sylvia. Vegan items are often processed in plastic, so this is difficult. This is a difficult one to substitute.
Yeah, and I would say there are some things for myself, some things we can't substitute is we have pets and there's pet waste. And it's one thing on my list that I have not been able to find zero waste as of yet. Vegan items, like my sister is vegan, I'm pescatarian, so I only eat fish and eat mostly, plant-based. I would say as fresh as you can make the other items, and if there's only one, like if you're buying tofu, if you're buying things like that, if that's your one item that has the waste, but then everything else you can buy fresh, or like if you go to the bulk barn, you can fill with your beans and things like that, or aluminum. If you can find it canned, that would be good. But maybe just put that on your list of things that start seeking out, and keep another list of things you were able to reduce. And sometimes, that's that one item that you just think, oh, I can't do it, not yet. So.
We have a question about a composter. Kathleen would like to purchase a composter. Is there a kind that you would recommend?
So there's several different options. So like for me, we live in town, so we have the curbside pickup. The other option is, depending on where you live, you can drop off you can purchase a green bin and drop it off to the landfill site to where they do the compost. So that is another option. I do know some people that live out of town that do that. If you live in an apartment, there is also the option, I don't know if you've seen it, but it almost looks like a bread maker, and it sits on your counter and it dehydrates your food, and then you can put that into like garden or save it for mulch, that kind of thing. It's quite expensive. I did look into it. But because we have the curbside pickup, it didn't make sense for me. And then there's just the rototiller ones as well, which you could get at Home Depot or Canadian Tire. As long as it's not in a sunny spot and it's able to be constantly turned over. I also know people that just find a spot in their back bush, and they're not putting things like sauces and raw meat, obviously, but any vegetable scraps. They just find a spot that they know, animals aren't going to go after that anyways. No different than having a garden. It's just decomposing out there. You just need to be careful of what you're putting in there if you're doing that. So. And I just saw that comment. Yeah, food cycler, that's what it was.
And question, where is Sustain?
Sustain is in Huntsville, and it is off of King William. If you head over the bridge, they are on that main street though. And it's a great store. And they also have a store in Peterborough as well.
And so we have a lot of recommendations from people, which is absolutely fantastic. The one other one that I will mention is Sherry says something about soap seed balls. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, like soap seeds, which you can get actually at the bulk barn, like soap nuts. I think, is that what you're talking about, is soap nuts? I haven't used them myself, but you can get them at the bulk barn if you wanted to try them out. I think you put them in a jar with water and shake them, and it creates the bubbles. It's good to try. It's good to try anything, and what works for some might not work for others too, right? So like for me, I have the time to bake things. Other people were like, I don't have time for that. And so what I would recommend in that case is, if you wanted things like muffins or things like that, if you're going into somewhere like Tim Hortons and they won't allow you to, put it in a cloth bag for you, ask for it on a plate. And even if you're taking it to go, you ask for it on a plate, and then you remove it and put it into your cloth bag. So, just little tips and things over the course of the years that I've picked up.
Yeah, and I found when I went to Tim Hortons, it was very hit or miss with bringing my reusable containers in. Some places were fine if I held the container and they put it into the container, but they wouldn't actually take my container and put it in themselves. So it can be very hit or miss. And if you're traveling, like if you're on a road trip or something, sometimes you may not be able to get zero waste.
Yeah. And that's where I would say, try to find a local place, because they're more, they don't have those policies they have to adhere to. So they go, yeah, okay, sure. So, and plus then you're helping a local business as well. So.
And quick, Anne Richardson is asking if you could share the Facebook page again, please.
Yeah. So it's called Reusable Revolution in Muskoka. I think I can type it here. I'll just type it. Muskoka. And then the other one is Trash Walking Cup Count in Muskoka. And that one we're out there picking up coffee cups, but it's nice to kind of follow along and see how many, because it is pretty alarming how many people are still throwing their coffee cups out the window. That's true. I just saw Sylvia's comment about cost of fuel. So that is true. So that's why I only go to that store in Aurelia, every 6 months, and I wait till I absolutely, don't have anything left. I do also drive an electric car, but I realize that not everybody has that option. And so I would say, again, if there's places like even Bulk Barn, I have to drive to drive to Bracebridge, from Gravenhurst to do that. But that Fresh Nutrition and Lifestyle store is walkable distance to my house. So if I can get it there, I try to get as many things there, or that Anderson's produce is walkable to my house as well. So it does need to be factored in for sure. And what I'm hoping is that, your local grocery stores start seeing this trend and picking up on it as well. That, oh, okay, so they're allowing it. I actually have talked to the local health unit and got a letter saying that it was perfectly safe to use your containers as long as they were clean, that they were not worried at all about, contamination. They were more worried what you were doing with that meat once you've left the grocery store, whether it's in your container or their container. If you leave it in a hot car, that's the problem. The problem is not with your container. So I'm hoping that those, bigger chains in your local grocery stores will pick up on, what we want to start using. And with these bans, these single-use bans that the Canadian government is pushing forward, we're going to have to see something change. It needs to change because we need to have a more sustainable way of shopping.
And the other thing to note is, like, for example, the Aurelia store, I go there when I teach dance. And so it's possible that you can find people local to you that might be willing to do some shopping for you. So you can give them your reusable containers, and if they make a regular trip, you can do it that way. So hopefully as more people buy into the movement, there'll be easier ways to, meet with other people and get them to do stuff for you, or, a give and take situation.
Yeah, for sure. And the other thing I would say too is that it's easy to get caught up in the whole zero waste needs to be new and beautiful, and like I showed you, my paper towel, that was a splurge that I did for myself, but you can also just use some towels that you have and put them in your drawer, and that's why I like to, our cupboards look like this. This is a Caesar salad cup glass container that now has my baking sprinkles in it. My tea bags are in an old soup jar. So it's not beautiful, perfect, lovely mason jars lining my cupboards. I'm using what I have and not buying new and not going crazy with things like that. So I would like to know if there is anybody was there anything at the beginning that you thought of in your waste that now you think, okay, I could swap that. Or if there's things that, you're like, no, it's still waste and there's nothing I can do about that right now.
And well, maybe people are commenting that there is a question about replacement for large Ziploc bags.
So I bought silicone bags, and I meant to grab it to show you, but I don't have it. But they're just, they're resealable. They're dishwasher. I throw them in the dishwasher. They're great. So I would use those. I also use like parchment paper all the time, and I use Pyrex containers. So for my frozen berries, I put them in a Pyrex container. I got them in, I got frozen, the peas and carrots and corn. I got that in bulk from a restaurant. It was a huge bag, and I just put it in a big Ziploc or container, like one of those big plastic Pyrex containers, and put it in the freezer, and that's lasted me all year. So, so if you can buy something in bulk and then put it into smaller silicone or something like that.
And where did you find the large silicone bags?
So they did have them at Sustain, and they had them, I think, at Bulk Barn as well. You'd be surprised at what Bulk Barn has now. But I can look as well, and then I'm just seeing who said that. Maybe I could let you know, or I could let you know, Erin, and you can pass it along. I don't have the brand name on them, no, sorry, but I will look into that. Maybe I'll post it on my Facebook page.
And I guess it depends on how large you're looking for.
True. Yeah, and sometimes it's like, just use the Pyrex if you have room in your freezer and store it like that. Or like someone was mentioning at the very beginning, your milk bags, maybe that's a way to reuse something that you already have coming into the house. Could you reuse that again?
And any ideas for buying yogurt short of making it?
So where I shared that this is how we get our butter in that glass container, this company also has yogurt. They stopped selling it at, it used to be at Yig's, and they stopped selling it there. So I don't know where we can get it now, but it did come in glass containers. And then I was able to purchase the lids, which look like this as well, but smaller. I purchased them when I was in Barrie at another place, but they were to reuse those same containers. And you can use, like, then you could take, as you accumulate these little glass containers, you could take those to fill them as tea lights or things like that, right? So.
And Barb is also mentioning the Refillery District in Aurelia.
Oh, yes, the yogurt. Oh, perfect. Yeah, and I think it might be the same because there's two different companies. I think they're both Quebec companies. But the lids, and I think they sold the lids there too. They were amazing.
And the other thing I'll note, my dad makes yogurt, or has in the past, and I have gotten really into jam making since I started Zero Waste. So I would say, like, even just give it a try, like try to make it yourself. You might surprise yourself at like how easy it is. And Ginny Fly is even mentioning that it's easy to make in the instant pot. So like we make ice cream at home occasionally. Like it's kind of amazing what you can manage to do if you just like try it. It's really daunting to try it because it's scary to try to like make bread, and the first couple times you make it, it's like a brick that you pull out of the oven. But like the more you do it, the easier some of those things might become. And you might find, like, I love picking berries now. I love making jams. Like, you know, it can really, just changing that outlook a little bit can be pretty awesome.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. It can be daunting, and the first time you do it, you're like, yes, I did it. You know, it's amazing. So
awesome. Okay, so no really follow-up questions. I will have this available. It'll be posted on our website afterwards as well, and I'll send out that link in another email. So if you want to rewatch, or if you want to share it with other people, that's fantastic. It's available on YouTube, so or that's where we'll be posting it. And I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Super eye-opening. Hope it like energized you a little bit to reduce a few things. I know I was doing very well before the pandemic, and I've kind of fallen into bad habits since the pandemic starts. So maybe for me, it's a little bit of an energy boost to start getting back into it. And I'd like to thank Christina as well for, you know, taking time out of her day to do this for us.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thanks everybody. If you have any questions, please feel free to message me on the Facebook page, or, you know what, I'll put my email here too. If there's something that you're thinking of that you have questions about, that's my email right there. And yeah, thanks very much for joining me. Hopefully, you know, I'm excited to see things move forward, and we'll start refilling tons of stuff at all the stores.
Yeah, and I'll send out Christina's email in that email that I send with the YouTube link as well. So if you have any specific questions for her, or you can also just message me and I can pass it along and connect you guys. But thanks everyone for tuning in today, and I hope you go out and reduce just your waste just a little bit even.
Thanks everybody.
Have a great day.